If you both activate your audio and raise your right hands for me, please. Swear the testimony in this case will be the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth. I need to hear from you. Just say yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right. Reading the material that had been filed, I was pretty confused. I'm not quite sure what the relationship is here. It appears somebody's a tenant. Somebody's a landlord, maybe, I'm not sure. And Ms. Hernandez, you were seeking $4,500 and it says in rent. So explain that to me.
So we're actually both tenants. We were on the same lease together, and my claim includes that Catherine broke the lease agreement.
Okay, the lease agreement with you or the lease agreement with the landlord that the two of you signed?
Both.
Okay, did you have a separate agreement? Did she sign something with you?
No, just like because I was also on the lease. So just with the official lease agreement.
Okay. Okay, so I was a little confused, Ms. Hernandez, about how you came to the number 4,500. Because I saw the email, the text saying it was 2,000. So
Right.
tell me how you achieved or got up to 4,500. What are you seeking?
So the 2,000 was just the initial 2 months of rent that would have been required to break the lease legally. And that's outlined in the lease agreement as well. But then the 4,500 was just me kind of like taking her portion of rent for the next 6 months, because that is how much time was left on the lease.
Okay. So when did Ms. Steele move out?
In September of 2024, and the lease agreement ends in March of this year.
And did she pay September rent or didn't pay September rent?
She did.
Okay, so the unpaid rent, as far as you're concerned from Ms. Steele, is October through March.
Yes.
And what's her share of the rent monthly?
The rent monthly would be 848 each.
Okay, so that comes out to be $5,088.
Correct.
Okay, and that's what you're seeking.
I guess, yes, that would be correct.
Okay. All right, so, and the basis of your claim is that you both were signatories on this lease. Ms. Steele left the lease early, knowing that the lease was up at the end of February, and she left you holding the obligation to pay for the apartment in full. You've not replaced her on the lease, is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
So right now, are you still in the same unit?
Yes.
Okay, and you're having to pay the full rent, which means you're paying for Ms. Steele's portion that she initially had obligated herself to.
Yes, that is correct.
And Ms. Steele, looks like your argument is that you left because Ms. Hernandez made it untenable for you to remain in the apartment. Is that essentially your argument?
Yes, along with the multiple lease violations on her part.
Okay, so once again, let me clarify. Two of you didn't have a separate agreement between the two of you. You just both co-signed on the lease. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. We both
Go ahead.
co-signed on the lease, as well as made verbal and written agreements that are shown in the evidence that I've provided, stating that her partner was not going to be moving into our residence. The evidence that can be found in section A2, page 23 of the evidence provided. And on section A4, page 24 of the evidence provided, you can also see where she states that she would be incorporating him into the monthly payments, and that is in violation of section 1.4, page 16, provided in the evidence.
Open up the exhibits and the defendant's exhibits.
Yes, absolutely.
And did the two of you pay rent separately, or did you give a check, Ms. Steele, to Ms. Hernandez, and she submitted both checks? Tell me how that worked.
We paid rent separately. This is also recorded in the account ledger that is provided in the evidence that I've provided as well, and it shows the monthly payments for the both of us.
Okay. So the fact that Ms. Hernandez may or may not have paid rent late, how did that impact you? Were you assessed late fees yourself?
Luckily she had paid it before the 6th. Starting on the 6th would be when the late fees would be incurred, but she was notified every month that the rent would need to be paid and proceeded to pay the rent late every single month. To the point where the property manager had to reach out to me and ask me what was happening with that. And these things can also be seen in the evidence provided at, I believe, B5, page 28, and B1, page 26. And this is also a lease violation in section 1.6, page 17, and the lease, the account ledger is pages 4 through 9.
All right, so it appears to me, Ms. Steele, that your primary issue was that whatever Kobe's last name is, was, even though he wasn't on the lease, was essentially living in the home. I see where the plan was that he was going to get his own place, but apparently he was there for a while. So tell me about that. When did he appear, Ms. Steele?
So he appeared to be staying there frequently at the beginning of the lease in March. And by the time about April, I was wondering if he was going to be getting his own place or if he was going to be living there. And by June, it had been made clear that he was going to be living with us. And that is stated in A4, page 24, when she says that she's going to be incorporating him into our bills.
And
Yes,
contribute to the bills?
he never contributed anything that I'm aware of to the bills. We were continuing to split the rent 50-50 up until my departure, and that is also shown in our in the account ledger.
And Ms. Hernandez, I see some conversation from the property manager who indicates that you had told her you were looking for someone to replace Ms. Steele, but that she never heard from you as to whether you found anybody. So what's the story there?
Yeah, that is correct. So I was looking to replace her on the lease. However, wasn't able to due to the income restrictions or income requirements of the apartment. So if I could speak about the everything that happened with Kobe or whatever. He was in the army, so he was living on base up until about July. although he is my fiance, so he was coming over quite frequently, and would often, if I needed help because I'm a nanny, so my schedule is a little bit wonky sometimes. So if I needed some help, he would help me out. But yeah, so after she moved out, it just wasn't a possibility to get anyone else on the lease because after she left, there just couldn't the income requirements weren't being met. So we would have gotten thrown out and homeless.
So what's Kobe's last name?
Carcady, Carchide.
Okay, is Mr. Cartady still living there?
No.
Okay, so when did he stop living there?
I'd say about December, the beginning of December.
And the whole time he was there, the rent was still 50-50 between you and Ms. Hernandez, is that right?
Yes.
And I mean, I see some text where you're saying that he's going to stay in the room like a ninja so he doesn't get caught by property management. And so as if he was there in violation of the lease. So explain that to me.
Okay. There are times with my job, especially between May and August, where I would have to be out of town. And so he would come and help with my cat or just like take care of my car for me. Like you can see in one of the messages that Catherine's provided that he was taking care of my headlight. So he was there under the knowledge of me and Catherine. However, I just didn't want the property management to make assumptions about his presence there. Um, just if that makes sense.
Okay. And Ms. Hernandez, had Ms. Steele raised with you her concern about Mr. Cartady staying there in violation of the rental agreement?
No, there were no, I've never got confronted about any issues other than like the dishes on occasion. So everything kind of happened out of nowhere for me from my perspective.
And Ms. Steele, do you agree with that?
I do not agree with that.
Okay, tell me why.
If we can go back to the previous statement where she said that I was aware that he was there, as you can see in A3 on page 24, I'm saying that I didn't know that he was there when I tried to put her cat into her room, and that I had tried to get the attention of anybody being in the house and nobody had responded, and that she told him to let me know that if he was going to be back in the house before 4 p.m. that day. Also, it stated, me saying after you guys get that out of your system, is Kobe going to be over here every night again? And then she states, I made it very clear to him that he isn't moving in and he's fine with that. And then it proceeds to go to, oh, are we still going to talk or no? And, we've talked after that in person. And this is on A2, page 23.
So that date that appears here is May, so that's when you were having that conversation?
Yes. May
And
1st.
so what was the frequency that Mr. Cartady was there after that conversation?
He proceeded to be there almost every night, if not every night, leading up until June, when she had said next month she will be factoring him in, because of his frequency being there and that he had been there, living there at that point.
Okay, so he never ended up paying a third of the rent, correct?
Correct.
And so did he remain? And I understand he left the home as of December. Was he there since you left in September? Was he there the whole time you were there through September?
Yes, he was.
Did anything change about his presence during that time?
Up until September, no, he was there pretty much every single day that I was there, and he was living there. The only time that I'm not sure of is in September when she allowed there to become a flea infestation in the house, which made it uninhabitable to myself to be there.
Okay, you moved out because of the Mr. Cartady being present, or because of the fleas being present?
A culmination of reasons. Mr. Carcady was the first of many. The fleas were the straw that broke the camel's back. Due to me asking her to attempt to remedy the situation and proceeding to say that I could handle it on my own with products that were not going to properly handle the situation. And this is also in violation of the lease. If you look at if you look at page 21, section 9.1 and 9.2, stating that your animal should not create that kind of environment for other tenants. And these things are stated in section D, and you can find them in D4, page 36, and D6, page 37, her and I stating that the flea situation was getting to a point where it was causing physical harm.
So what animals were present in the apartment?
A single cat.
Okay, and the cat belonged to?
Savannah.
Okay, and when did you start noticing a problem with the cat?
The problem had started pretty early on. It's recorded throughout the entirety of the lease agreement there and the rental there, and she states on multiple instances that she would be bombing to deal with the flea situation and saying that she was attempting to deal with it, but just never got to the point where she was, and I had asked her if she'd been treating the cat. But the cat is also not my responsibility, so I didn't see me having to upkeep her cat and her cat's health and cleanliness.
Okay, so was the apartment ever bombed? Do you know
Yes.
knowledge?
The apartment was bombed many times, and I gave my cat a bath. I was handling the situation. However, you can see in the messages that she provided that when I asked her to handle her own bedroom, she kind of blew me off on that. So I can't really do anything about the situation if there's a refusal to handle one specific room. They're just going to keep coming back. So
All right, and Steele on that issue?
On that issue, I would like to say that that is not the fact at all. I believe I put in here, let's see. If you look at D4, page 36, I said that I want to bomb my room. Do you want to bomb the whole house? She proceeds to say it's kind of hard to do that with Bagel here. That stuff can kill him. And until I can give him a real flea bath, they're just going to come back. And I said, well, I can't even be at the house right now then. So can you work on that? And she doesn't, huh?
What was the date? What was the date on that message?
The date on that message was September 9th, and I hadn't been home throughout the entirety of September, even up until that point. She proceeds to not do anything about this situation, even admitting on September 13th that my legs looked like somebody had attacked me from all the bites, and stating on September 17th that she had did the bombs, but they were still seeing small ones.
Clearly it was taken care of.
All right. Anything else, Ms. Hernandez?
I will say that if I may speak to a little bit more about Mr. Carcati, like I said, she was aware of our relationship. We were engaged before we even signed the lease agreement, so she was aware that he would be a frequent presence in the home. He did not move in until, after everything that happened with Catherine, and he did begin coming over more frequently after July when I became pregnant, and I had intense morning sickness. I was debilitated to the point where I had to take time off of work. And so that's why he was there so frequently to help me. And I mean, as far as the cat and the fleas are concerned, as you can see, I was taking care of it. And if she wasn't even home at the time, then I can't see how she can say that I wasn't. But anyways, I did give my cat multiple baths. I bombed the house multiple times, all of the rooms. However, there's not much you can do about bugs. So,
All right. Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
All right. In this case, Ms. Hernandez and Ms. Steele were co-tenants on a lease. And lease started in March, I believe, of 2024 and ran through the end of February of 2025. Ms. Steele departed paid the last month of her residence in the apartment through September of 2024, leaving unpaid October, November, December, and now January and likely February. Ms. Steele indicates her departure was based on the fact that Ms. Hernandez had her fiance essentially living there, not paying rent, and also that the cat that Ms. Hernandez owned brought fleas into the apartment, and Ms. Steele received numerous flea bites from that, and at one point had asked to have her room bombed, but Ms. Hernandez said she couldn't because that might impact the cat, I think is how I interpreted it. But nonetheless, there were two primary issues. One was the presence of a third party who was not on the lease on a regular basis, and then the issue with the cat, both those leading Ms. Steele to depart the residence prior to the expiration of the lease. Normally, I would find an obligation on Ms. Steele to pay her portion of the lease through the remaining months. But in this case, I'll find that because of the prior facts, she had sufficient reason to depart without obligating herself for ongoing rent payments. So I will dismiss the claim made by Ms. Hernandez. Thank you.
Thank you.